So how would you describe your theory of magic? Is there a way to ascribe it to a commoner like me? Like how do you see the world? Like how do you or maybe a better way to ask is like what are you seeing about magic that maybe most people don't see?
I think the thing I do with magic is I try to structure most things I see in the game that I can convert into language. Like I really put effort into putting things in a way where I can explain it even to myself. Like I can just verbalize what's going on in the game. Sometimes that involves actually putting random names to random concepts. But
Just
that's
to have a
like,
label?
yeah, just to have a label, because the second I have a label on something, it's much easier to extrapolate that situation to other situations because I can use that label, right? And that we have a lot of labels that are like somewhat random, but as long as they're explained, once you explain the label, it just becomes a word, right? And then you can use it. So I try to structure what's going on in the game like this, and that includes like why some kind of limited decks float more, why other decks need more lands to actually like function fast and limited, even though the mana curve is low. Like a lot of concepts that are like known by Magic players, but they are not often talked about because they're a little bit abstract. I like to actually label them, and I think that's something that I might be doing more than other people. A lot of players are extremely good at playing the game, but they're not as good as they are at articulating what they're thinking of. Like you ask a player, and they will be like, "Well, this is the best play, but I cannot really tell you why." Right? I try to avoid this because, to my understanding, the way I get better is when I fully understand why I'm doing things. Like if I understand why I'm making that play, if this play is wrong, uh, that's how I can make it better, right? Otherwise, it's much harder to because I have to work from scratch. If I have this structure, I can actually just analyze the structure and see piece by piece of the whole like sequence where I can get better.
Does that mean that you're looking for kind of a repeatable decision making process?
Yeah, exactly. Like to me, Magic is very hard. Like the game is extremely complex, but I try to make it as easy as possible. Like whenever I play a deck very well, this actually means, well, I have made most of the decisions so many times they become a repetitive process, so I can actually focus on the new unique ones instead of having to think on the other ones. So that's actually what I'm trying to achieve.
Are there cases or instances where you can't find the language to describe what you intuitively feel? There must be these times where you feel like you have a Magic player's sixth sense, not even as a pro, but just as a Magic player in general. And then are you trying to find the language after to explain what you did or rationalize it? Or are there still moments where there's just kind of intuition that cannot be verbalized?
Well, it does happen. I think experience is part of it, but it definitely happens a lot. Like I don't think it's uncommon even you're playing a game and you have a sequence that's very unique or a type of play you rarely make, and that's fine. I think that's a good thing. But what I try to do though afterwards is try to label that so I can recognize it again. But there's definitely spots where it's not easy to like explain why you make a play. Like you're like, well, I feel this is going in this direction, and that's fine. Like we're still human beings playing Magic, right? And as the name of the podcast says, but it's I think it's also good to accept that it doesn't matter which system you have to actually like learn or see the game. It's gonna be failing sometimes.
How did you decide to approach the game this way? Did you always have this idea or was it developed over time?
I would say it was developed over time. I used to play a lot of Magic, like as a young player back in the day. But it was decent. I got to the PT and such, but it was definitely way worse than when I played as an older man. I have also a poker background, and I will say the mix between having played a lot of Magic and the poker background, because the way you learn poker is a little bit like this as well. Like I worked as a had like these like poker coaching systems as well. So I will say it probably comes from the mix of both.
Tell me if you agree or disagree. But my understanding is that to become a high level competitive poker player, you actually have to spend more time studying the game than playing the game. Like, there are definitely benefits to grinding poker and playing lots of hands and doing pattern recognition and but I think there is quite a significant amount of time studying as well. So I want to first ask you, do you agree with that general sentiment?
Yeah, obviously it depends on each person individually, but yeah, you have to study like a large amount of time. Like it's gonna be a different percentage for everyone, but it's definitely not a 5% of time. It could be 50, it could be a 25 or a 20. But a significant amount of time you're working as a poker player, you have to be like studying.
So do you think that perhaps Magic players, if I extrapolate your experience, perhaps Magic players don't study enough and they're playing too much, or is there some sort of different way to look at it?
Well, I think it depends on every player. Like some players, I mean, everyone knows a friend that's very good at picking up decks, right? You lend them a deck, and the first game they play, they already know it. That's not me. I'm like a slow learner. I think it really depends on the skill set you have, and I think there's a certain amount of players that will do better if they study more, but some others actually are better the way they are, just playing more. Like I think it depends on every individual being. For me, approaching Magic in a way of like studying the game to understand the game to actually then learn the game, that's what worked for me the best. I don't study the game as much anymore, but I used to do it like a lot. Like I'm talking like a few days a week, like even full mornings or whatever, just studying games again and again. Like I did a lot like back in the 2017, 18, 19, those years. I used to do this
Hmm.
quite often, yeah.
And I understand you're trying to get back to it, right? Because I listened to your year-end episode for the Carnies, and you mentioned wanting to tighten up your technical play. And I think you described like getting the equivalent of cardio or just doing like more of the thing. Like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like, because I know you talked about it in general on your podcast, but like, so are you looking to tighten up the technical play? And like, does that mean studying Magic more, or what aspect of it for this year?
Well, this is a difficult situation because every person is unique, but also every moment is unique. So I know what worked for me like 7 years ago, but I don't know
Right.
what will work for me now, right? So
You've
what I'm going to
changed too,
do
right? Yeah.
exactly. Everyone changes, right? And my level changes on game also changes. So what I want to do is just try to see if studying more games is good. When maybe what I need is just to play more. I don't
Mm.
know. So the first step here for me is to figure out how can I actually get better at technical play, because even if I'm the same kind of like the same person, the fact that it used to work doesn't mean it's gonna work now. So I have to first answer your question. I don't know the answer, but
How do you even
yeah.
evaluate that? Because I think people listening to this would be curious, myself included. Like, how do you? Is there some sort of inventory you can do on yourself? Like, I don't know how it works exactly.
Well, I think it's a matter of also being honest with yourself in terms of like sometimes you make mistakes for different reasons. If you can actually be like absolutely honest about why you think you're making mistakes, because sometimes mistakes are made because you were, scrolling on your Twitter phone, and that's
Hmm.
fine. But to me, it's obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about feelings, about how you feel about why you're doing things. But I would like to think that I have a decent sense of what's making me play wrong, based on experience. So what I usually do is just trial and error. I just try to work on a thing and see after like a month or two if I see some changes, some improvement. If I don't, well, just move to something else. But
I
that's
see. So it's like a
there's
trial and
no
error.
real, yeah, there's no secret formula. At least I know. Like I don't
Okay.
know anything better.
Along these lines, are you still do you still get upset with yourself, or do you still get frustrated at times playing Magic, or is that something that is the 2017 Javier?
I mean, I get. I don't think I will not say upset is a word for me in this context, but I do get frustrated sometimes when I'm not performing as well as I think I should, and I don't have a convincing reason. When the reason is like, well, I was not focused enough because I was thinking of something else, while I'm like, spending time to travel somewhere, sacrificing a lot of like human resources in terms of like I stopped doing other things to prepare for this tournament, right? So if I don't perform well in that tournament, that's kind of disappointing. But I don't really get like very angry or anything. It's more like I should respect what I'm doing more. It's a little
Mm.
bit of temporal disappointment, but I also like to use it as a way, like as fuel to actually get better, right? So it's not like I don't think these emotions are bad in terms of like they're creating anything negative on me. They are actually being used. Like I'm using this energy to actually, you know, like, well, I felt bad because I felt like I did not respect my time preparing the tournament enough, right? Because I didn't focus enough. Well, let's take this frustration or this energy and make sure I use this towards, this not happening again so I can focus better, if I think of
Mm,
this moment, for example.
okay. It's also interesting when I think about what you said in regards to your experience last year, because who was the Magic player who said like this is going to be my final tournament and then he did really well? Was it Yo Larson or somebody like that?
Strasky,
Oh, Strasky. Yes, I'm sorry, I got the
it's a
names
classic
mixed up.
Strasky.
It's the classic Strasky. So you had your little mini Strasky moment, right? Because you said this might be my last PT, and then you top aided the PT. Can you talk to me a bit about how your mindset changed last year? Like it seemed like you were putting, I think you described it yourself as like you were trying to have more fun in the moment as opposed to putting too much pressure on yourself. But that seems so hard to do because you're there to win. So I maybe you can walk me through that process if you're, where you were last year with that.
Well, I can see why it will look hard, but honestly, it felt like clicking a button
Hmm.
in my head just because often I feel like I get into the high pressure situations because I put myself into it. Like I have this setup where I just put my music, just sit in the corner and just focus like for half an hour or something. And instead, I was just walking around talking to people, which is what I do when I'm relaxed, right? So that helped this change. Like, I also think you're there to win, but ultimately the reason we play Magic is because we love Magic, right? So on a very deep level, you're there to enjoy your time, like to enjoy your time, to have better memories for the future or whatever. But like, it's not like winning is the primary motivation once we start playing Magic, right? We start playing Magic because we have fun. And going to the PT, like the PTs are awesome, but actually they're awesome because we enjoy them. Even though trying to win is what we do there, the real motivations behind playing the PT is enjoying the PT, right? So if you're in a position where you feel like there's no, a way for you to enjoy the PT more, that's the right one. And not only because you will enjoy more and have a better time, and therefore, you will have a better memory, but also because I feel like if you are having a better time, you will be in a better headspace to actually play better. And therefore, you will have a better win rate, right? So I think feeling good in a tournament, it's not only like something I owe to myself in terms of like a person, like I want to do as I can in order to be happy. But also, if I do so in the same time, at least for me personally, I will have a better chance to win the tournament. So it's if I identify in a tournament that a mindset will make me happier, I will do it. So if it's being more chilly, that's chilly. If I feel like I need to be like full pressure mode, that's it. But I'm always doing it because it makes me happy, and that's why I think in a tournament and that applies also to like being like angry. If your opponent top
Hmm.
decks or something happened and you are very furious about it. The way I actually I removed it from my system quite early in my career, but because if you're very mad at that situation and you're having a very bad time, you're actually reducing your win rate. So it's not only about you feeling bad in that moment, but also it's like I'm gonna win less, so this is dangerous. So just stick it out.
So I think you're describing that being in a good mood or being in a happier state, there's not some sort of like mutually exclusive thing with being competitive. They're not mutually exclusive states of being or states of mind. It's not like if you do one, you can't do the other. Like you can have fun and you can still play the best you can and you can still you can still put expectations on yourself, right? I guess it's not even maybe even saying putting pressure is too much. Like it's just you're there for some sort of purpose, but in the moment you can maybe still enjoy it, right?
Well, I will go a little bit further and saying it's not like they are not opposite. Like for me personally, they actually go together. Like even if you see me like I'm very, tense, like in a high pressure situation, I'm actually having a lot of fun. Like those times I'm just walking into a feature match for winning in the PT. I might be looking serious when I'm having a lot of fun. Like that's a very fun moment for me. That's a very unique sensation, and I actually enjoy it a lot. So For me personally, I will say like whenever I'm having the most fun, I turn to perform the better and the other way around.
I see. I see. So another thing that I find really interesting is that, and this is also something that Antonio told me, is that at some point, actually, I don't remember if it was Antonio or Mengu, one of them, one of your podcast friends, but they were saying that there was a fork in the road in your career, right? You had mentioned poker. At some point, you were just doing, there was a fork. You were deciding like whether you were going to be a poker pro or a magic pro, and then you chose magic. So can you tell me why it was that you chose one over the other?
Well, the answer is easy. Is this Magic made me happier? Like I think Magic is
Right.
the best game ever, the best game I've ever played, and it's just a game that just makes me happy to play again and again. It's been so many years, so many hours playing Magic, and I still wake up and get to play some Magic, and sometimes at the end of the day I'm like, wow, today was so
Hmm.
much fun, and it was maybe random Tuesday where I played some leagues, and that's it, right? So for me, that was kind of an easy decision in terms of like this game is just gonna make me happy, and I always had this like feeling as a kid that it would be nice to actually be a better player, like a good player among the good players in the PT or whatever, which I never got to do. And I felt like I was on this stage of my life because I thought it was like 20, I don't know, late 20s, 30, 38, 31 maybe. I was like, right, let's try to play Magic for a year or two, trying to approach the game as seriously as I was approaching poker or whatever, just studying the game and trying to get better and see where I can go. And my goal was to qualify to the PT, right? And I actually got there after a year or so. But I mean, obviously, I was not expecting to do as well as I did later. But I wanted to get to the PT once again because I had these memories of like the PT being awesome and a unique experience. And once I got to the PT, and that was like 10 years after my previous PT, it was still the same. It was still magic. Or you walk into the venue of the PT and it was like, ugh. and 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 yeah, I just kept going in that way. But for me, it was a matter of like happiness again. I value happiness a lot in life. I think doing things that make you happy. Um, I mean, it's a little bit hard to articulate,
Hmm.
but for me, I think like if you make yourself happy, you're gonna have a better life, and that's actually more important than the things that are commonly seen as things that make you have a better life, right? So I think that applies to games as well. And on top of that, as I said before, like if you do this, you will also perform better.
How did you come? I mean, no, I mean it's actually it's really great to hear that you know you're driven by happiness. I'm just wondering how you came up with this philosophy. Was it just some sort of personal awakening? Did it come from your parents? Like how did this philosophy come about?
Well, that's that's a good question, actually, James. I don't know. I will say
You just always
probably
like this? Is that just since you were younger?
no. I don't think so. I think this probably happened as I was growing older, and just meeting more people, talking to more people, right? But I'm trying to think of it now, but I guess I probably
Because it's not
just
like a movie. It's not like there's this one point where something
exactly. No, it's not like
like
one
a
day I wake
turning
up.
point, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like when they wake up and I'm gonna just pursue happiness all the way. No, I definitely was like, I want to do good things or whatever. I want to be a good player. No, no, I was never like this when I was a kid. I was like a normal kid trying to be good at something. But I guess if I had to say where, probably like around mid 20s or something, where I was just like seeing a lot of people, especially from the poker world or whatever, being successful, but not being particularly happy,
Mm,
in a way, but
mm.
also seeing a lot of people just not being by any means that successful, but in being extremely happy with their life. And I was just like feeling like, I want to live like this. I want to play Magic. Definitely going back to Magic was a big step towards, becoming this person, I will say. But there's no breaking point. It's not like
Right.
anything specific happened for me to actually be like
It's
this.
like an accumulation. And I have to assume that poker must be more financially lucrative. But the reason why folks like yourself and Nassif and others like came back to Magic is because like it's just maybe a more fun game. You enjoy it more. That's basically what you said, right?
Yes, but in order for this to actually be with you, you probably have to be there in a way. Like, having the opportunity to play a different game that's actually gonna be better for you on like traditional values standard, like like traditional life roads or whatever. But you're there and you identify that's not the case for you. I will say that's definitely a big step towards achieving this
Mm,
happiness.
mm. You mean just like trying other things so that you have some sort of benchmark to compare it to, right? Because if I only played Magic my whole life, I don't have any other comparison point like poker or other games, then I don't have a good uh yeah, I don't have a good benchmark, right? You have to see the other world first, it sounds like.
Yeah, I actually had another fork in the road because I quit poker for Magic, but I also started playing Hearthstone, which was kind of big back in the moment. I also got like some good opportunities to play Hearthstone tournaments at the beginning, and I did well in some of them. Like I won one of the first tournaments a game had. So I actually had also this second fork between Hearthstone and Magic, and I think it was like, yeah, I was well positioned in Hearthstone, and I was like silver, I think, in Magic or gold in Magic, and I had another decision there because Hearthstone was a game, like Hearthstone was also a very good game in a way.
Hmm.
Like I like the design a lot, I like the gameplay a lot, uh, but I again choose Magic, and those were different reasons though, because the difference between poker and Magic in terms of fun is massive, but I think the difference between Magic and Hearthstone in terms of fun, they're somewhat similar in a way, right? Like they have a lot of like deck building, and the gameplay is actually like they're both fun. But I guess the tournament system, the PT, and the people I knew from Magic was actually like a very important part of that as well.
Mm,
Like because it's not only the game that it's fun, it's also like I enjoy being with people from Magic a lot as well. And
hmm.
Magic has this like social element, which this might surprise some people that have known me for a little bit because I don't look very social to a lot of people, but I actually enjoy, like it gives me a lot of joy and happiness to be with my friends from Magic, right? And that's also something I waited back in the day when this was 2016 maybe, the year Hearthstone got like big, and that's also another fork that I had to be like I had to decide, and yeah, I mean, so that's not it's not only about the game specifically, but also about like what's around the game, the PT, because I had lived the PT experience back, and I was like, wow, this is just great. I want to do this every time, and I had this situation where I also felt like, so I wanted to play whichever game I choose as well as I could, but I knew I could not play two games. Like I knew I could not be very good at both Hearthstone and Magic at the same time, by like as good as I
Matter of
could be.
focus, right? You have to pick one.
Exactly. So I just felt like I had to take a decision, right? And like once I choose Magic, I stopped playing Hearthstone. But that was also, some
It was a
difficult.
decision to be made at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Magic as a whole package, and obviously this was pre-COVID. Maybe your decision is different. Had things happened a few years later, but I guess you're right. Like during 2017, 2016, that was kind of I might even describe it as kind of like a golden age of tournament Magic because it was very clear what the Pro Tour system was. It was very clear like what you needed to do. There were tons of qualifiers. Now, I can't speak for everywhere around the world. Maybe it was tougher if you're in Spain or in Europe, but it seemed like there were still plenty of opportunities if you wanted to work hard and move up some sort of tournament ladder at that time, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the system was the old system, and there were like a lot of big tournament, like all these like huge Las Vegas GPs or whatever, but also like a lot of GPs in Europe. It was definitely like a good moment for competitive Magic, but also the prices were like not very good. I mean,
Hmm.
like
Especially when
if
you factor in the travel, air travel, and lots of things.
exactly like when you talk about golden era, it's because like coverage was good in terms of like the marketing was good in tournaments, right?
Yeah,
But the
maybe
price
golden era for spectators like me, but not necessarily
exactly.
for a player.
That's the thing. Like you could be like the top 20 player in the world, you could be platinum, and you could like don't have enough to live or whatever, Like
Yeah.
they were called Platinum Pros, but the money was not
You still need
very
the
good.
sponsorships, you still need to write articles, you still need a lot of other things, right?
And like, so that was for someone living in Spain and not in a very expensive area. But if you were American, like you will not have enough to live out of in platinum, right? Like,
Hmm.
and platinum was like, then again, top 25 to top 30, I think, players in the world. So I'm talking about like the very unique players that will be the very best, right? So I think the tournaments were very fun to play, enjoyable, but the prize money was just not enough. Like the concept of pro, I felt it was like just like someone that between Magic prize money and the sponsorships or whatever, like barely get to, like live. Definitely not
It's
like
like a break
saving money
even
for the
or a
future.
living wage, right? Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, actually felt. I remember like the platinum was like the minimum wage or something. You know,
Mm. Mm.
platinum without
If
counting the
you really
travel.
calculate it, it probably is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it was the minimum in Spain. I assume it was under the minimum one in US or whatever. Like it was not very good in terms of like actually living out of there. Of course, I mean, living in Spain or like other countries that are not very expensive, that's fine. But for someone living in, I don't know, any other more expensive country, like even the UK or whatever, it will be hard to actually make a good living. You can live, you can eat or whatever, but at some point you are on your 27 years or something, saving some money for the future, or if something happens actually good, that's something you could not do as a Magic player unless you like won a PT. Which of course it's obviously good prize money, but you cannot count on winning a
Can't
PT every
expect that.
year. Even if
No.
you're, let's say you're the best, all right. Even if you're the best, you cannot count on winning a PT because it's just like variance or whatever, right? So I think this was a good time in the Magic for aspiring players in terms of like the road was very well made. It was a
Mm.
road that was pavimented through the years and it was very good looking,
Hmm.
but the end of the road, the price situation there on the top of the mountain, it was not very good. It was minimum wage,
Right.
right? And that's a little bit of an issue of that moment because so we were the average age of the players was considerably lower to the point where this was acceptable anyway for most people.
Mm.
But if you change the situation to all the people, you have a kid, for example, or whatever, like that's a whole different situation because now you're platinum, but you're also not saving much because you're barely, unless you win a PT, you're barely having like extra money
Hmm.
coming in and the such, and that's, I'm saying like it was a good. I have also great memories of those times, but looking at it from like an economic perspective, it was
Far
so
from
so.
perfect. Yeah, far
Yeah,
from.
definitely not perfect. Like
Hmm.
I think the MPL area, or even the one we are now, even though it looks like it's supposed to be worse, I actually think it's better for different reasons. Like it's less demanding because that one, it was super demanding. Like if you wanted to, if you were lucky enough to be born in US or America or just live there, if you were lucky enough to live in America or US, sorry, America or Europe, you could play a lot of GPs to actually get platinum or gold way easier than other people
Hmm.
like on the other areas. But you also will have to travel all this, will have to need to have this money to travel to all the GPs and also the time, like the human energy to actually go through 10 GPs a year plus the PTs and such, which is something you might not be able to do if you had a family and and two kids or whatever, being 38 years old. Obviously, you can do if you're like a 20-year-old man, but like that's fine. But like there's a lot of different situations this system had that it's easy to forget once you think like, you had the GPs and the coverage, and that's great because there was a road to the PT, and that's true, and I have great memories of that. But let's not forget, there's like the world. I mean, if the same player was like 10 years older, well, he might not be able to do all of this, right? And that's something also the new system, acknowledges in a way. Like, I actually think the new system, like, when they presented it, it was like, oh, this is not very good. And a lot of players were like, this is not great compared to, what we had in the golden era, whatever you want to call it. I think it's actually great. Like, I think the system is very good at doing what it does, which is like enable the PT Dream or whatever. It doesn't focus on having professionals because there were really not that many professionals anyway based on playing because the prize money was not actually there before the MPL, right? The system is like, okay, this is not there, but you can have a working life or whatever without being considerably, in a significant disadvantage to other people, because you don't need to grind 25 tournaments. If you're in the PT, you don't even have to play DRC. You can be the PT, you can play 3 tournaments a year on Worlds, and you can do that with a family and kids, right? It's very different to live, 16 times in a year than to live three. And I think the system is like a much, I don't want to say healthier, but like a more sustainable, I will say the word, more sustainable way of playing Magic competitively for people that actually have like a work, which they kind of expected to do because you cannot have a living out of being a pro, right? So that's.
So there's two things there. One is that I think it's kind of a win-win. It's a win for Wizards in that they organize less events now in the current regime. And it's also a win for potentially people that want to do well at these events. I don't even want to use the term pros because who's a pro now? But it's just Magic players. There's less events potentially to play if you're interested in that sort of thing. The second point actually is about like, I feel like the designation professional, even like many years ago, like it's a very fluid definition because like how many pros are actually, if you define professional as someone who does Magic as their primary source of income or as their primary focus, sure, you can call a lot of people pros, but in reality a lot of the pros were like part-time pros, right? They had regular jobs, they were just like flying on weekends to go to some events, so they still relied on other sources of income, and which makes your story even more interesting because like you have to really love the game when you're good at these other games and you have options to have more savings, I guess is the blunt way to say it, right?
Yes, but then again, it comes down to happiness, right? Like I can just
Okay.
picture, I could just picture a life where I was like, 45 years old and will
Right.
have more savings and more money and more success in a way.
Yeah.
Or I could have 45 years old and I will be like, well, I've been playing Magic for 10 years. I'm like just happy as I can imagine.
Mm.
And it's still the same. And I think this decision actually is not that as unique as it sounds because, like, okay, most of the best players in the world playing Magic, I mean, you can tell they are very good at least at analyzing things, right? Like they have to, otherwise they're not gonna be like top 20 players
Sure.
in the world in
That
Magic,
should
right?
that should extend to analyzing other things in life too. I think that's what you're saying.
Exactly, and this means like financial jobs or whatever. Like I think remember this Sperling article about what you could say about getting a job if you're a Magic player. Like I think if you are an extremely good Magic player, you're definitely going to have like once you set a path, a very good potential career, right? So this exists to any Magic player that's just like very good. So I will say that's common to all the Platinum Pros or whatever you want to call. It's just there in my opinion. It's just like a matter of people deciding to do what they love, and I think that's also a little bit of a misconception that I've heard across the years, like like it's like, well, the pros actually just only want to win. They don't care about Magic or whatever. It's like if they don't care about Magic and
No,
they
they
care about
probably have to
winning,
care about Magic more than
yeah,
someone
then
like
why are they playing
myself.
Magic?
Otherwise, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, right? Like it's actually the opposite. Like
You're
like it
not
will be.
machines that are just out there to like only win, right? It can't be. There's
No,
no
but also it's like
sustainability.
I remember like I had this experience in one of my first PTs. Back in the day, the venues of the PT will actually stay open until very late. Not unlike now, where 8 p.m. sometimes we were going out, and I would be like just traveling to the PT. I think it was my second PT or something, and we'll be out because we're not good, and we'll go tourist, right? And we go back on very late in the night, and we'll just the venue is still open or whatever, and just have a look, and they will be just the hall will be almost empty, but they will be the pros actually drafting with each other, and that was actually an interesting moment for me because I was like, well, I mean, these guys surely have played enough, yet they
You sure
decide
you
to.
still want to play Magic?
Yeah, it's like I don't know how late it was, but it was like, well, this guy is still playing here. They just after they tested so much and they play a tournament, they decide what they decide to do with their time in this trip, they just to play more Magic. Like they
Mhm.
just decide to draft against each other. Like that. There was a moment that stood with me because it tells a little bit of like they're not pros because they're good and then they like the game. It's like they become pros and become as good because how much they actually like to play the game, and it's not the case for absolutely everyone, I guess, but that's a very common story. Like among the best players, you can find like often they are just players that just enjoy playing the game a lot because that's how they actually got good.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think I'm gonna read this quote. I think you once said it because your friend told me. Like, there's a quote that you said like people think we are Magic pros because we are very good at playing Magic, but it isn't true. We are Magic pros because we are very good at learning how to play Magic. Right? I think that's what it's about. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's.
always being a student, right?
I
Yeah.
definitely, I definitely agree. Like, yeah, I just agree.
Well, you agree with yourself. You said it.
Oh,
So
okay.
I guess Antonio must have a good memory, but I yeah,
He
that was something
does.
you told him.
He
Yes.
does. He does have a good memory for quoting not only me but everyone. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you once said this sentence, and they're like,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So you don't have quite the same level of maybe photographic memory then.
No, I don't think I have a memory as good as his
Mm,
memory.
okay.
I do
So
have good memory for magic sequences. I can remember sometimes like
okay,
you know a a board state from like years ago, whatever, but not
sure.
like for everything.
I think it's also interesting because you're kind of touching on it. It's that for Magic, people that play competitive Magic, there's some sort of like quest for like intellectual pursuit or the intellectual challenge. Whereas I feel like, again, this might be a gross generalization on my part, but I feel like in poker, you're supposed to actually find players that are weaker than you. You're supposed to exploit the kind of like zero sum nature of the game. Whereas I feel like in Magic at the highest levels, you're always trying to like play against the best, and there really is only one avenue to play like with the best, like which is the Pro Tour. Like there's no like alternative to it, right? I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
Well, there's I think for poker specifically, I don't technically yes, you will have to play with worse players, but I think this is a lot about like human beings liking to be competitive and trying to be the best they can or the best overall. That's why you still see poker tournaments or games that just have like these world championships or just tournaments where they only like have like the very best players. Like this thing on humans that they want to be the best at the game, this exists in every game. That includes poker and every game you can think of.
Okay, so it's universal.
Like if once you get to high level, like to the high level, they still want to be the best. And
Okay,
that's why they have this like high roller, super expensive, super only the best
sure.
players tournament because they
Right,
want
that's
to.
true. Right, otherwise they wouldn't play that because
They
there's
are,
still
yeah,
something about it. Yeah,
exactly. They are not playing those exactly for profit. They are playing those because they are the equivalent of the 24 player Magic Worlds, right? They,
right.
they, they want to play against the best and they want to, walk away feeling like I beat the best
There's still
once.
the ego involved. Like there's still ego. Like I want to be the best on this table, kind of thing.
Exactly. And that's something that fools players a lot, right? Like you want to be the best, so you work towards it. Right? That's the
Yeah.
mindset a lot of people have. But in Magic, it's actually similar in a way. Like you have the road, but the end of the road is like playing with the best, right? And that's I personally enjoy playing with the best a lot. Like for me, the MPL, do you remember the MPL splits? I think those were like maybe not great to watch because just have the tournament structure. I can tell you, for me personally, they were great to play. Like you
Hmm.
will know, like you knew you were playing against like
You're always playing against one of the best.
it
Yeah.
was like all the final bosses, and also there was a lot of metagaming involved. The decks were
Right.
different. Like like it was a very challenging way to play Magic every week or every 2 weeks, and I did enjoy that a lot. Like I have like for me when I think of the MPL, I have this very fond memory of just having this MPL league play, which were
Mm.
very hard. Like the games were very hard, and we were all trying a lot. And for me, playing against a very good player, knowing that they are trying the best, this is important as well because
Yeah.
it's not the
There are
same. You play,
stakes involved.
yeah, like
Yes.
well, the stakes don't matter as much as they're trying. Like if you know they're trying because they're gonna beat you, that's enough. Like it's not really about what you win. it's about playing against one of the best, and they are trying as hard as they can. So you're getting the best version of them against you. I do have fun. Like for me, this gives me joy. I don't know. I just like playing those
So you
games.
actually thrive under that kind of I'll just say it, you thrive under that kind of pressure because I've talked to other MPL players that they don't I'm not saying that like when it's time to play the match they're going to like somehow play worse. It's not about that, but they don't like the mental pressure of like feeling like I have to perform every week. But that actually seems to you seem to enjoy that.
I enjoy this a lot. Like for me,
Okay.
it like that's one of the things that actually fooled me towards getting better at Magic. Like being able to play those games against the best, playing their best, and being like, okay, I can play with you. Like being able to enjoy those games in a fair situation. That's a very big motivator for me. I don't even need to win the games, like because sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's fine. I just like sometimes I play those games and I wake up from the table. I'm like, I lost, but I'm like very happy because the game was like a great game, and that's
Mm,
fine. I just yeah, I don't know if I play much better, but I definitely enjoy my time a lot in the situation. So
right.
you're having the pressure, just shuffling. Even the moments between games, I'm still enjoying myself there a lot. Yes.
Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone is built differently. You have your way of processing it, so that's really cool. And how do you think about? I mean, this is stuff that you're thinking in the moment, but how do you think about your? I hate to use this term, but like your legacy. Like, how do you want? Have you thought about how you want to be remembered? Like, or how you want to be seen by your contemporaries, that kind of thing. Is that something that you think about when you're doing magic, or does it just never come up?
Not really a lot. I mean, I would like to think I'm a good representation of
Maybe
Spanish
you want to be at
players.
least respected or known as
Uh, so that's the thing. I don't really need to be known as a certain level of player. Like I don't need to be thought of like one of the best or something. That's not something that actually motivates me. Like I'm not moved on that. Like for me it's about living those moments myself. Like I just feel like the legacy or how people perceive you as a player is often like based on how you actually market it in a way,
mm,
like which character you are showing. And I just don't think it's like for me, it doesn't change how I want to play the game and how I want to live my life. So if they see me in a way because I am how I am, so be it. I don't think it's for me. Yeah, I will say I'm not very bothered about that.
okay. Having said that though, I mean, does when you became the world champion, when you won the world championships, like did it change something about you or how others saw you? Maybe let's start with the first part. Like how did you feel after winning it? Like did it change your life in any way?
I mean, it did change my life a little bit in terms of like tournaments were a little bit different because I will get more attention than I did before in tournaments that I actually was not very used to it. So it took me a little bit to adapt to that situation. But I would like to think I didn't change too much. Definitely my methods were the same, but I did have to go through one very big fear that I had is like you see it in other players, right? Like sometimes they get like they become world champions, they win everything or whatever, and they lose motivation and they lose like
Maybe the
like
drive or the
they lose
fire or
the
something
drive. Yeah,
about that?
exactly. They lose this fire, to. So I was actually very scared to be that person as well
Because you don't want to
because
lose it, but yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
exactly I didn't want to turn a win into something that will take away the thing I enjoy the most, which is playing Magic in these situations. I love that, right? I will be scared of that. So I actually was like, well, I'm gonna let myself just relax because I won the world. So I'm just gonna try as I was like not qualified for anything. And that was not a very good decision that I made because I ended pushing myself a little bit too much in
Oh,
terms of
like you
like
went kind of way optimized for that
yeah,
in
like
an
I kind of
extreme.
overreacted. I was afraid of just not having enough drive that I overreacted, and I want too deep. Like I want too
Yeah.
motivated. I eventually like ended testing too much and such. I got a little bit burned eventually, but it's not the same as losing motivation because you don't care as much because you have won the tournament. So I was so scared of that I actually had to go through this process of calibrating myself correctly. And that was a tough one because I had never been in that situation before. I definitely made some mistakes there in terms of like deciding how much to prepare for tournaments, but I mean that's life. You live, you learn, and definitely. I mean, I would like to think I didn't change too much, but it's also easy to say this, but hard to be sure, right? Because
Yeah.
I guess I mean I probably change it because most important things that happen in your life actually change you in a way. So the realistic answer is I actually changed, but I would
Something
like to think
changed,
not too
but it's
much.
sometimes hard, like kind of going back to what we said, like maybe it's hard to articulate it, maybe it's hard to have something other than a feeling, or maybe it's some sort of gradual thing. But I do remember talking to like Paulo Vitor. I interviewed him before he won the World Championships. This is like many years ago. And he said that he wanted to win the World Championship because this is a way for people in his life that are not in Magic to actually like understand, okay, I'm now the world champion in something, right? Did it change like how people that knew you from outside of Magic saw you in some way?
Well, there's two things here. Yes, because it's very easy to know what a world champion is. So you're someone,
Yeah.
yeah, but he's a
You're the
world
best
champion
at
of
this game,
that
right? That
game.
you've been,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
international. Like it is in any context, people understand what this means. But that was never something I actually like. Like my
That's not
motivation
the
was
goal, right? That's
no
not.
for me. It was never the goal. Like even in the because the year before I lost the finals of Worlds, right, in 2017. Even in the coverage and people, because next year I was in the top four, like so I made back-to-back finals. They were like, you were like working for this, taking revenge or whatever, just getting. I was like, no, I'm
Okay.
just
So that
like
was a storyline, but it didn't, that's not how you felt.
that's not how they felt. It was like, I mean, I know how no, I just was trying my best, and my best happened to be this, and I might win the tournament, but. If I lost the finals in a row, that's fine. Like I will still be very happy. It's it's not like I needed to win worlds,
Yeah,
like
life
it
goes
was never
on,
my
right?
goal.
Yeah.
That's I know that's probably not what you expected, but it was really not. I was just like try my
No,
best.
no, I love this because this is the realistic answer, right? Because I think I often call this like the I don't have a good term for it. Like this is me using like crude words, but it's almost like the paradox of magic. Maybe it's like the Strasky effect. It's like when your life is not all about magic, like paradoxically you do better at magic. Like when you put everything into magic, sometimes it doesn't quite, or maybe it's just an impossible ideal when you're so invested in magic that like the losses and the wins dictate everything about your world reality. I don't know, like there's something there. Maybe this is just like me as an outsider looking into this, but maybe you feel differently. So
Well, that's two different things though. Like I I did not need to win worlds. Like my goal was not exactly to win worlds in terms of happiness, in terms
but your goal is
of
to play
looking
the
at.
best magic you could, right? Which is the
Well, yeah, but
yeah.
I was willing to involve myself a lot on that. Like I don't think I didn't care about the tournament because I did care about the tournament as
Okay,
much as anyone.
okay, yes,
Like,
yes.
okay, my approach for this tournament, specifically these two worlds, was to make sure no one could test more than I did.
Oh, okay. You had the most preparation of anybody on the
I
planet,
don't know if
basically.
that was true or not, but for 2018, I will say someone that will play more than me for the tournament will have to sleep few hours because
Okay.
I will be like full
Okay.
day, full
Sure.
like for like the
It's a
previous
full-time thing.
three,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
well, full time in a very little way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there was the idea like if I walk into the tournament thinking like, well, I've played the most hours in the whole field because they will have like a tie will be the max they can achieve because I've played all my time, which is not
Mhm.
very healthy, you know. So I'm just saying like the fact that once in the tournament I was not like this feeling knowing that I have prepared the most and I will play well. Then if I lose, I lose, and I got six. That's
Right.
fine.
But
But
I'm saying,
this
I think
feeling
I
is
agree
good.
with you. I'm saying, I'm not saying that you expect to win or to win that tournament. I'm saying that you did everything you could to prepare. So at the end of the day, you don't feel bad about like the result if you felt like you did everything in your power to prepare, right? So
Exactly.
which is fine. Yeah.
It's fine, but it's also like
Although
it's
that is dangerous too, because when you prepare more than anybody else, there's that ugly word of entitlement and like expectation, right?
well, it's also like it's not very healthy in a way, like like because being there and thinking like, well, I'll try my best. Well, what does trying your best means? Like it's not easy to and the literal way of thinking, try my best or trying as hard as you can, that's not a healthy answer. And that's also a dangerous mindset, which is a trap I had to solve for myself, because they got to a point where if you prepare tournaments like this for long enough, it's not sustainable. Like it's just not good for your life, and therefore it's not good for happiness, which actually means it's gonna be ending being counterproductive, right? That's something that's also a big danger. But it was never related to winning for me. It was related to like this like ethic. Like I was forcing myself to be as well prepared as I could for every tournament, and that's also like it's a danger you don't hear a lot about, right?
Mm,
But it's also a danger because
mm,
usually it's like if you care too much about winning, you're gonna not be kind with yourself. That's fine, but also if you don't care that much about winning and you care about the process and you're not being prepared, which is the usual advice, well, this also has a dark side, because if you actually
yeah,
take it to like you actually do as much as you can, I will not recommend doing literally as much as you can. Just do. Like the correct way of saying it will be like do as much as you can while still being as happy as you can. And therefore, this
yeah,
this is like the best way to play tournaments, in my opinion,
yeah,
because waking up at 10, playing until 1 a.m., having 1 hour to clean yourself and eat, and then just playing the next day again, that's not happiness in the long term. It can work for 1 week for one person or something,
mm.
but it's not how you can actually live playing Magic tournaments. So I would like to add that part. Just
I
take care of your
think
happiness.
I think this is so true. Like just and I think you're right. It doesn't get talked about enough, which is the idea that I don't know if this is like yin and yang, but it's like everything has like the dark side and the light side. So it's like if you want that success, you have to sacrifice. And if you don't want it, like you have to care, but then in caring, you have to embrace both the good and bad of it, and sometimes the ugly part. And it's people want this sort of like clean separation where it's like I only want to do the good things, I don't have to do the bad things. I don't want to get my hands dirty like, playing 14 hours of Magic a day, but it's like that has to be somehow inevitable if you really care about that thing. But you just have to recognize, as you said, that maybe it's not sustainable. Maybe you do it like at certain points in your life, like maybe for a few years, but it can't be like every year of your life, because it's just gonna kill you.
It's gonna kill you, right? And it's gonna make you unhappy. And there's one thing I don't know if this is true for everyone, but for most of the best players, you will really not be like top 5 player in the world if you don't play an unhealthy amount at some point, right? Like that's
You
probably
have to put
true,
that work in, or that
and
sacrifice,
that's
right?
probably true for most things, right? Like I'm pretty sure the
Yeah.
best tennis players in the world actually played too much tennis for some amount of their lives,
Hmm.
and that's just how life is. Like it's not only that there is like you say, like I think I like that a lot, yin and yang, on the bad and the good side and the bad side. It's like you have to go through both. Like there's no way to avoid the bad side if you want to be on the top part of the game, and I think that's a reality, because you will not be one of the best if you play 2 hours a day. That's is a fact. Like it just doesn't work. And if you
Hmm.
play too much, well, then again, these bad things happen. And yeah, that's just a realistic approach, I will say.
Yeah. I'm quite sure Nadal never played just 2 hours of tennis a day
Absolutely, yeah,
in his
exactly.
life. Even when he was injured, I'm sure that he was doing something.
Exactly, but maybe when he was like 18, he will just play like the whole day, to the point where
Yeah.
some like the physical medics, whatever, will be like, "Wow, you're playing too much." I'm
Right.
pretty sure he had been told he was playing too much at some point of his career, and he will be like, "Well, I just want to be the best, or I want to be better."
Yeah.
And I
Do you want
think
to be
that's
great,
that's
or do you want to, just, take care of yourself? That's the dark
exactly,
side.
yeah. I think getting like being extremely good at something, I mean, ideally, you can reach a point where it's not the case anymore, but I will say getting that good at something is usually going to be involving not caring as you should about yourself. And
Yeah.
it's not like it's fine, but it just seems to be the way it is. But also, I mean, I learned this from Paulo, actually. once you are good enough, you can actually then have a good relationship with the game. Because if you're good
Right.
enough, you don't need to play 14 hours a day anymore because
Yeah.
you already did it before.
You're already on if you're already on that mountain, but of course to get to that mountain, you had to like
Exactly.
I would even go so far as to say like there's no amount of no greatness can ever be achieved without some kind of unhealthy sacrifice. It's like I think in most maybe all things in life. I just like even if I want to be a better interviewer, like I have to put in the hours. Like I have to you have to do some kind of work. You have to do things that when you don't enjoy it. Like it's just that's just that's just how it is, right? I'm not saying I don't enjoy this interview. I'm just saying like in general, right? You know what I mean?
I actually agree. I think this is a good good comparison because I think these skills like I don't think being a Magic player and being an interviewer or being a content creator or being like a tennis player is that different on that regard. Like you can get better things. You can choose not to get better at that, but you still enjoy it anyway. You can try to be successful. And if you're trying to be among the most successful ones, you're going to be having to make sacrifices. And I think all these situations in life are actually more comparable than they look. Because, being an interviewer and being a Magic player should not have too much in common, but it actually does, right? Because there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of like, it's like a time sink in a way where you can just, try to put as much resources as you can. And that's also a thing that I want to talk about a little bit because there's this conception of like competitive players being like something very different in a way where like you're a world champion. This means you were the best at doing this, but there are also other people. There's some content creators that are the best at doing um what they are. They have the most viewers because they're better at doing that, right? And the common answer is like, well, but if they tried to be the world champion, they couldn't, right? And but if you try to be as they are, you could. No, that's not true. Like I will not be able to be as good as as good as creating content as the content creator are. Just like different skills, and one of them is called world champion, and the other one is not. But for me, one is not better than the other. Just because I am on on the top of one side doesn't mean to me that it's better than the other people doing everything, like any
Mm.
other aspect of the game or even other things. So I believe skills and situations in life are often comparable, but not because they're better than each other, but just because, it's for me it's not better to be a better player than it is to be a better content creator or a better interviewer or a lawyer or whatever. For
Yeah.
me, they're just
I
like
wouldn't say
different
there's like a
things.
ranking, but I would say that different people have more affinity. To use a magic term, there's more affinity for different things. Like for example, right? I'm sure that it must have been validating in your earlier magic career or gaming career to like win. Like I'm not saying that magic players don't lose, but like when you see some initial feedback that is good, that makes it more sustainable for you to keep going so that you eventually one day you are a pro or a world champion. Whereas if someone never gets that feedback because they just don't have into naturally the skill or the way to like get that validation on the way, it's much harder for them. Like think about it, like someone who's great at something, like they had to get some early success. Like if you get beat up every day, uh I don't know. Maybe this is not true. Maybe you did like get beat up a lot as a Magic player in the earlier days, and you just found a way. Like maybe you have some resilience. That's also very important too. But that in itself is also a skill, right? So
Yeah, I was decent compared to my local peers when I started playing, but I definitely like the way I see Magic is actually I use the mountain analogy a lot. Like you climb a little bit and then you find new people and they destroy you and then you have to climb more. I use this
okay.
a lot. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I did get like the higher you go, the toughest it hits because at some point you think you're good, but then you actually get to play with the very best ones. And if you're good enough, you're like, wow, these guys are so much better than I am. And that's rough. Like, even if you're good, even if you're natural to a game or something, you're going to find people they're going to be better than you. And I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
that's the case for everyone because at the very least, they are they are like well seasoned on that. So you're gonna,
Hmm.
and you're gonna run into a wall that will seem to be like the wall will seem so high that some days it will be like this is impossible. Like I cannot never get these people. They are so good. But
Hmm.
sometimes I think resilience is something I value a lot for Magic as well, because sometimes you're there and you're like, well, I mean, it might be impossible, but there's only one way to find out, right? And let's just try. I think resilience is probably very useful for all career paths in a way, where because I'm pretty sure like other jobs or other careers have like these points where things don't go very well, and being able to actually stand there and be like, okay, I want to try this route anyway. That sounds useful to me. I don't know. I definitely do not have a lot of experience on other careers, but I like to talk. When people
Yeah.
tell me about their experiences, I like to hear a lot. I think
I think there are commonalities, and I think you strike me as someone who's very like at least like keeping an open ear to like how other people are living their lives, and you're able to show some level of empathy and like understanding for other people. So I think that's like really good to combine the views. But having said that, did you have any dark times when you were climbing your mountain where you felt like maybe this is it? Like for example, right? I'll use a really bad. This might be a terrible analogy, but in tennis, like maybe you reach a certain level as a player, you realize you have to reconstruct your serve, you have to reconstruct your basic fundamentals because what got you here is not going to get you there. Like, did you ever have moments like that when you're climbing the mountain where you really started to question what you had to do, or you kind of felt like you had to take like 2 steps back in order to take 3 steps forward?
Well, first, when I was a younger player, before I quit Magic for the first time, I felt like I had peaked in a way. I was like, well, I can be good, but these players are just like too much better than I am. Like I knew I made 2 top 16s in PTs, but there were like situations where I got very lucky and had the right deck or whatever. Like I just felt like they were better than I am. That's it, like I felt like giving up or whatever. But then when I came back to Magic, I actually had some of these situations actually. And the biggest one for me was when I joined MTG Min Card. On under the orders of Li Shitian, and I was there. I was gold. I just had made gold pro, which was like top 50 of the top 50 players in the world, right? Top 60. Like I was good, by local standards. And we will just sit down and draft and play games, self-constructed, and every single player there was considerably better than me. Like I would just feel like so outmatched that I would be like, okay, this is just like I felt like that wasn't acceptable. Like how can I, because I was on I got gold, which was actually better than I thought I would get, right? Because remember, I was trying to qualify for 1 PT. And then I started chaining PTs and I was Silver Pro and was like, wow, Silver is great. I got to Gold, which was like the goal because that meant like playing more PTs. So it was good. And then I was like, well, this is just like these guys are much better. It definitely crossed my mind that I will never be able to play as well as those players. But I also felt, as you said, like I will probably have to be like, okay, my foundations are probably not good. Like because the only way like these players are so much better than I am is because my foundations are not very good. So I started to like, playing different mulligan differently, playing a mulligan more. Also, like I just had to readjust a lot of things that I had considered like, this is how it is. This is how you mulligan. Well, I was wrong. Not only because, I was wrong at considering things like that static. There's no way like you can actually define easily how to mulligan in Magic, right? Or how to play those situations. I also learned that, for example, like learning this was something I learned in that period of time. Like there's no hard rules in Magic that you have to follow every time, which obviously is trickier with this. Like at the beginning of the talk, we said about like this trying to
The
articulate the
models
situations.
or
Yeah,
okay.
right. So this got in a big
No, I
conflict
mean
with
you need
this.
heuristics, but you have to also understand heuristics can be fluid and there may be different. You might apply heuristic A right now where it should be heuristic B, so there could be some differences.
Exactly. So for me, this was not a huge breakout in a way, but it was a big change from in the inside. Like I started to think of Magic a little bit differently, just playing with these players. That was a big moment for me, especially because I needed for me to go through this. I needed to perceive myself as like I know how to play now. Like I'm kind of good, but turns out I was not.
It's that juxtaposition of confidence, but at the same time humility. Like you need both in a way. You need confidence and you need to be humble. Like you can't like they almost have to exist in the same space. It's something that really struck me when I listened to your year-end podcast episode. I don't know if you remember this. Like you guys were talking about your favorite 2023 cards, and it was just a discussion around like the One Ring. Is it like, I think it was your favorite card? Like, should it be a 4 of or should it be a 3 of? And then there was also another discussion like Bowmasters. Like, do you play 4 in Modern or do you play 3? And I thought it was so interesting because I feel like 99% of Magic players would just say, yeah, just play 4. But I feel like there's a certain level you get as a player. When you're at that certain level, you start to borrow Sam Black's phrase, you start to challenge assumptions and you start to like almost start to break it down again because I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just like, I feel like a lot of like Magic players, they're so confident, but then I can clearly tell from you and Antonio, like once you reach that super high level, then you start to almost become more flexible in that confidence. Doesn't mean you're not confident, but like you're constantly thinking about things, right?
Yes, like I think that's a little bit of an extension of what I said before, but like it's important to be able to maintain this mindset where you can be wrong. Like that's something I think what was Brad Nelson taught me in a way where he was like, I was like, well, but you're good at these, and if I cannot trust you in this decision in the standard deck building, who can I trust? Because you're Brad Nelson, right? And I was like, listen, like you just have to make sure you doubt every step you make. Like every decision you make in a deck, it could be wrong, and you have to never stop doing this because the second you do it, you can actually walk into a trap, and you will never know if the trap is like a killer for a tournament, right? So you have to make sure everything you decide can be wrong, and that's not only deck building, but also like archetype distribution or even gameplay. Like sometimes you're gonna be a play and you're like, well, maybe this play I've made 200 times is not the right one. What if there was another play that maybe 1% of the time is right? Let's see if I can find it. And I definitely think that's also something a lot of the best players do often. Like they are like, well, let's see if there's something different here because I might be wrong on all these assumptions.
So going forward, what are your do you have any goals for this year, or do you have any if not goals or just process related things you want to work on? I guess we touched on one of them, which is technical play, but yeah.
Exactly. Well, the big things for me is like, one, getting a little bit better on technical play, as I said in the podcast, and two, just like keep enjoying the game, like keeping this enjoyment I have with Magic now. Like this, I think I have a good relation with the game now. Like I think I work a lot for tournaments, but I also play a healthy amount. I also take a small break after PTs. Just keeping this like very healthy and fun balance with Magic because I'm enjoying this a lot. After the COVID situation, they removed the pro system, the MPL. I felt like maybe it was time to just move on, get another career and just move on, do something different. But now I'm just enjoying this playing a lot of Magic and the PT so much that I just want to keep doing it. And that's only true because I'm having a good relationship with the game in that regard. So I want to keep it that way. Not play too much to burn out, not play like low enough that I don't feel prepared in the tournament. Just play the right amount. And in terms of goals, my goal, I'm actually a simple man on that. I would like to be qualifying for the PT. Like my goal is to qualify again. Like ideally qualify for Worlds, but if it's not, I just keep the qualifications for the PT, which is, it sounds like not a lot, but it is actually not that easy as well. Like you have to do well in the PTs, which are the hardest tournaments. So, but yeah, I don't like the results goals so much. So I think
you don't want to say like top 8 of PT or something like that.
It's not only that I want to say it, it's just I don't think it. Like if the year ends and I qualify for the PT next year's, that's fine. Like I that's a good year for me anyway. Like I don't think I need to top 8 a PT for a year to be good in Magic. As long as I'm qualified for more Magic next year, I'm really happy with that. Yeah.
Okay, as long as the train keeps going or the thing keeps running.
Exactly. Like this train is giving me happiness, so I just want to keep it working for as long as I can. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, 5 questions with Javier Dominguez. What's the best or most memorable Magic play you made?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the best because the best plays was probably made like in random tournaments, but the first one that came to mind was playing against Kowalski in the Nominated Draft, where I got to Shivan Fire 3-5 I attack with a 5/3 trampler. He blocked with a 3/5, and he just casts a shooting fire, and his creature just do little damage to him. He was like on 13 or 14 or something, and I don't remember the details, but it ended being like critical to win the game. And I think that was a cool play. I don't really have like that many awesome plays, which probably means I don't make them often. Like I'm
It
probably
probably
like
just
just
means you
solid
make too
player.
many plays, right? It's really hard to single out one. I would
No,
have
I
to
think it's more
imagine.
like I'm not very good at spotting like great lines or like sick bluffs. I am more, I will say, like just a solid player. I try to not
Sometimes
mess
the
up.
straightforward play is or most of the time, the straightforward play is just the best one.
Yeah, I will say I am a little bit like that. I don't think I have like any great like, wow, this is the best play ever. I'm not that kind of player, unfortunately.
No problem. Okay, the next one. What's the worst Magic play you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Hmm. Well, the first one that comes to mind is when I was actually young. It was like PT Los Angeles, I think, extended 2004 or something like this. That's almost 20 years ago. I was playing a Tooth and Nail splashing counter spells and Fire Ice, and I decided to Fire Ice Sensei's Divining Top, which you can tell did not go very well for me. I did learn it's hard to interact with Sensei's Divining Top. I was like, I was there for like a minute, like, I cannot believe I just did Fire Ice Sensei's Divining Top. Like, how this is like, how does, I was so bad. And I actually lost the game because of it, because I will draw like the Tooth and Nail turn after, and I didn't. It was like a complete disaster.
Okay, live and learn, I guess.
Yeah.
What is the biggest Magic level up moment for you?
Well, my biggest moment level up in terms of like how hard it was definitely what I told before about like, joining MTG main card where everyone was better than me when I was a gold player. Like that must be the moment where I actually learned the most in less time, because they were also very helping. Like every one of them will be willing to help me get better, and for this I will be grateful forever. But definitely that era. Yeah.
That was a real push to improve and work on your game, it sounds like. Who's the Magic player that's had the biggest influence on you, and why?
Probably the realistic one is probably Anthony, because he's been there for different situations. But
Anthony Lee, aka
yeah,
Antonio.
yeah.
Okay.
But overall in the career, because I met him a little bit later, probably Marcio Carballo, because he's not only the one that actually made me play limited much better back in the day, but also he kind of believed I will become good at Magic before than anyone else, in a way. Like he kept saying to me like, I think you can be good. I think you can be good. He even, I mean, we won a team GP, but he called me like, I think you're good, and I want a team with you for the GP. Like he believed me, and knowing he's so good actually, gave me confidence in some, because some days I was like, I cannot be good at Magic even if I try a lot, and he will be a person there like, I'm good, trust me, I'm telling you, you can be good. And that's actually, he helped me a lot in technical level, but honestly, the confidence he gave me in some situations where I did not have any confidence at all definitely shaped a lot how I could play back in the day, like 2016 or whatever, 17, these years.
Did you guys ever talk about why he saw the potential in you, or why he was confident in you?
A little bit, but he's one of these players where if you ask why the play is better, he says like, because it's
Intuitive,
better,
just knows.
So his
Okay,
answer will
just
be
knows that
like,
you have potential.
because
Yeah,
he does know. Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of answer I will get.
I'm curious if he saw maybe something in him, in you, or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's hard to tell. He's. I will say resilience is something he value a lot, but yeah, it's hard to tell. I definitely try to get him some information, but he'll be like, I don't know, I just say it. Like,
What's your favorite Magic-related travel story?
I mean, it's not really travel. It's not really a travel story, but for me, it's when other people travel to my place. Because I
Oh
live.
yes, you host
Yeah, I
okay.
live in Barcelona, so it's like I remember for PT Hogak, PT Hogak. I think it's supposed PT Modern Horizon. Like for example, I had Sen and Mengu and Anthony Liam at home, for 2 weeks with my family. So we were all living together, and I will try to show them like the actual more local food things and how we actually live here in Spain. Because for New Zealand and Australian players, it's different. Or this last summer after PT Lord of the Rings, I invited whoever on my team wanted to be here with me at my place for like 4 or 5 days, so I can actually show them how we actually live here. Because it's different when you go tourism, right? That if you go to someone's places for like some days to see how they actually live there, it's not exactly a traveling thing. But for me, when people travel to your place and you show them, it gives me joy as well. So, and it counts. It's the first thing that came to mind when you asked this. So I think that's the answer.
So you enjoy being a host?
I do actually. Yeah, I think I get this like old man vibe or something. But I do enjoy being a host. Like when there's a tournament or GP or whatever in my place, I like bringing friends here and just taking them to places or whatever. Yeah.
Now I remember, I think Wizards actually did a video on you and your friendship with Mangu, and also your hosting capabilities like a few years back. Was that video accurate? Did it capture what it was really like?
Yes, and actually, that actually wasn't that week. Like those 2 weeks where we were home, that was when they actually made the video. I think it was the summer, and yeah, it just. Then again, it gives me joy, so I'm gonna be doing it as long as I can. Like even if I don't play the tournament, because last year there was again a grand qualifier here in Barcelona. I did not play it. I still had like 4 friends at my place, and I just taking them to places, and that was still very fun to me.
All right, Javier, thank you so much for your time, man. It's a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you all the best for 2024 and going forward.
Thanks a lot, James, and I'm glad you keep doing this podcast because I think it's. I mean, I've told you before. I actually hear it, and I think you're doing a very good job.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Humans of Magic. You've made it to the end. Thanks so much. You're awesome. If you'd like to support the show, there are 2 ways to do so. The first way is the most powerful. Tell a friend. Tell them to check out Humans of Magic. I'd love it if you could spread the word. The second way is to join the Humans of Magic Patreon at patreon.com/humansofmagic. Patreon is the best way to directly support the show from a financial perspective. For as little as $2 a month, you can support me and join the Discord. It gives me the power to keep cranking out new episodes with your favorite Magic people. If you want to go the $5 support route, you'll get a digital copy of the Humans of Magic book. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you, as always, making it all the way to the end, and we'll see you next time.